morning. Thank you for joining the May 1st, 2018 VOLTHA TST call. We are recording today's session so we can post it later to the VOLTHA playlist. So please keep that in mind during discussions and during presentations. And with that, we will jump into today's call. So we're going to do a quick recap at first of where our status on the entry of the 2.0 epics and user stories for items that were in progress but not complete last time. And then a quick status update on items for 2.0 that still required further discussion and clarification. And for one of those, we do have a planned initial presentation today as well with some info for discussion. And then we will go into looking at sprint 1 and see if we can get some of the correct stories pulled into that sprint. We've done some work in the background on OpenOMCI, so I think that one is set and in good shape for sprint 1, but we do have some work to do on the other scope items. So with that, let me go back to the top of the agenda. And Sean Missett, I saw you were on here. I know that we have a number of the user stories entered for the tech profiles. Are there more to come, or are we complete at this time?
Yeah, so I created an epic Vol 731, and under that are several stories. I think, from a high-level perspective, that's done. There maybe needs to be some more kind of work breakdown and more tasks associated with the stories, but from a high level, I'm done at this point.
Thank you. All right. And then Chip, I believe.
So Sean.
Oh, yes.
So Sean, so when you open the epic, are you going to include the detailed user stories, or just the epic, and then have each owner of the epic to develop the story themselves?
So so I did create the stories with some text. I also put the documentation in the epic as well, and reference that in a couple of places.
I switched screens so you can see an example of some of the groupings we've got here for the stories that were entered for that. Sean,
yeah, so if people can review that and see if there's a more detail required or additional stories or whatever is needed, we can work on that.
So I guess, so Julie, in order for 2.0 release, right, which means each module, so how many total, Sean, remind us, how many total different modules within this whole framework? 9 or 10?
What do you mean by modules? You mean stories, or?
No, I'm looking at. I'm thinking about based on the blocks you have on the diagram, right, on the picture. So yeah, I would say you have 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way through, right? So I'm assuming each one potentially will be 1 epic or 2, right? So we are looking for owners for each epic or something like that.
Yeah. So basically, I was looking for. I think it might be more useful to have owners per layer. So like VOLTHA core. I mean, that would be one area that needs work. So some of those bullet points I combined those. I kind of merged them into a single story. But I mean, in principle, that's basically what the outline was. Basically the high level stories from the picture grouped into different layers. One's VOLTHA core, one's ONOS, one's the management layer, one's the adapters.
Okay. And am I correct? I just want to restate this just in case some of the folks have not been updated with this. The technology profile is the framework we want to introduce in 2.0 to replace the expon config. So Sean, that's correct statement, right?
That's right.
And also I guess there's no really dependency whether the OpenOMT of course related whether the bottom up or top down. Does it have a dependency on versus whether that's only for those bottom up or something like that?
Well, the bottom-up discovery model is needed to, that's the model going forward, because we don't really have a mechanism to create ONUs specifically like XPON provided. So until we can add this, I guess, the second management path where we do equipment management, we can create ONUs. I mean, that won't exist in the 2.0 timeframe, I'm assuming, unless that gets done. So basically, this discovery mechanism is really the only way to discover ONUs and notify the management side of things.
Okay. Yeah, sorry for taking some of other people's time. I just want to make sure we have no new potential resource here.
Sean,
Yes?
do you think we need a separate breakout meeting on this again?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. So if we need to get that scheduled, probably sooner is better than later. So let me know if we need to start looking for a time spot for that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. So next item. So Chip, I know that you have a number of the stories entered for OpenOMCI, and I believe that is complete. Is that correct, or do you have more to come?
Yeah, it's pretty much complete for the ones I've thought of so far.
Okay.
I still need to do some information on some of the things that are blocking, when I need to, like for the PM state machine, obviously we need to know how to do PM.
Yeah.
So I need to tie those together. And then some of the ones towards the end of the list, I put those down more as design spikes to discover. That was like the test capability. Yeah. And so I think we're pretty good there.
Okay. Sounds good. And then next is for ONF, the status on the OpenOLT adapter stories.
Yeah, Julie, this is Shad. So we have Vault 669, and that's the story. And I think Saurav has created an epic as well. So that's what we have.
Are we expecting more to come, or do you think you have the stories you need created at least for Sprint 1?
Yeah, so for Sprint 1, I'm the only person working on this, so I prefer just one story, and it's a catch-all for everything. If others are going to join in, then they're free to create more stories and take away things from 669 and add it to other stories.
Okay. Great, thank you. And then on the, Kim, I think I saw you on here earlier. I believe we're still on hold for the EdgeCore OLT adapter enhancements, pending other items. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So we'll keep this, just keep that on the list for watching it until we have the right time to pull in scope for that. Then I believe I did see.
Julie.
Yes.
Also, it has been an interesting few hours here, but I think AT&T will probably also be engaged on this one too. So
but the meeting we're going to have Thursday is when we'll figure out who here on the staff we need to plug in with different.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, we can table that until Thursday.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, and then for the items requiring further discussion before we're at the point where we can start getting the user epics and user stories in, we have the 3 items that were having AT&T drive the discussion for those: abstraction for FCAPS management, which Sean Missett referred to earlier in talking about the technology profiles and additional things that need to be covered outside of that, alarms and PM, and then also security. We do have one initial presentation for discussion today from AT&T at the end of our meeting. That's on VOLTHA FCAPS operational status APIs. Is there any other status updates that the AT&T folks would like to give for these items today?
I just sent out a security proposal within AT&T, and we probably should schedule it for a future meeting.
Okay.
As early as possible.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, can you send that to Don?
I think I did. Don Newton?
Yeah.
Don, yes, let me check, but I think I did. I think you were on that distribution. Yes, I sent it to you just before this meeting started.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
Yep, no problem. Thank you. And actually, we also have the alarms and PM topic, and it may be very well that we have something available in the next meeting as well. We'll want to talk about priority between the two internally before we,
okay.
So Tom,
as far as alarms and PM versus security.
Tom, when you say internal, means it's not ready to release to the community yet?
Correct. The alarms and PM, I think we're still working on, but we were targeting our internal completion today. We'll probably need the better part of today to do that, and then that could still help us determine the priority, let's say, for the next possible call between these two topics.
Okay. So Tom, let's talk later today and see if we can figure out the appropriate time slot for these two discussions. Either we've got this Thursday, and then we also have next week would be a candidate also. Okay. And then, yes? Did you have another comment?
No.
Okay, thanks.
I just a quick comment. So I'm assuming there's some overlap between security and log management as well. I mean, just at a high level.
As a matter of fact, there is, and with respect to what's on the screen here for logging from Sienna, I think we'll want to talk about the high-level approach that I'm going to refer to on the security discussion and see if there's a relationship there that we can make. So I agree.
Yeah, I think David just published his requirements, I think, on the wiki as well, so that's available.
Yes, I wanted to take a look at it. As a matter of fact, when I saw it here, I said, oh, I should look at that, given the direction, a general direction I put in the security presentation we will be providing.
And then that actually brings us to our next topic, which was the log management. And as folks mentioned, and the link is there in the agenda that was sent out. And I'll switch over to that right now on the wiki. So David has made this info available for review and for comments and discussion. I just wanted to point that out for folks. I don't know who's had a look at it yet, but David, thank you for making that available. Do you have any comments you'd like to add for the group for this item right now, David?
The only comment I add is I'm not getting into implementation details here. It is all about kind of what the behaviors we want, requirements, if you will, more so than the implementation. The idea is after we kind of agree on the capabilities, behavior we want, we can then talk about creating JIRAs and discuss designs on how to implement it.
Okay.
Feel free to add, edit. I mean, that's why I did it on the wiki, right? I did not want this to be just a document with review. Let's make it a live document, so people, please feel free to add to it, edit it, whatever.
Great. Thank you, David. Anyone from the group have questions back to David?
Yeah, Dave, can we add a requirement that on a single site that all logs flow to the same repository?
You see, there goes the question. I guess is that a behavior? Is a behavior that I want to see it in one place, or via one API, or the question is I can have a single view of all logs, right, regardless of how many hosts are involved. It doesn't necessarily have to be stored in a single file on a single host. So I'm trying to get down to the requirement of what you're really after.
So you start writing sed scripts and whatnot, looking for correlation.
Okay.
I don't know. We can take that offline.
Okay. See, that's what I'm trying to make the distinction of, right? What is the actual thing you want to be able to do? You know, I want to be able to grep, search, filter using standard Linux tools would be kind of the behavior. Versus, does that mean a single file? Which it probably does, but that's, we can take that off.
But it doesn't have to be a single file, but probably a single host.
Yeah.
But we can. So we've got somebody. I don't know if you met him, Mike Zadek, last time you were here at the Foundry, but I'll have him reach out directly to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Been working on some of this.
Julie, do you want to take a note? I'll give you the name of the mic.
Okay. Thank you. And then the next item that we have on here is for the stimulator, ONF, and Netsia.
Sorry. Earthquake.
So Saurav's not here. I think he's looking at this, and I don't think we have reached a conclusion on this.
Okay. So no update yet, I think, this week for that. Do we need to, I guess probably we don't need me involved for that. If ONF and Netsia are in discussions, that's probably fine. If you need me to get involved and host a larger meeting or something, please let me know.
Sure, Julie.
Thanks. Okay, then I think that's it for our quick updates. I have maybe 10 minutes before I need to hand it over to AT&T for their presentation. So we'll see how much we can cover. So we did kick off Sprint 1 for 2.0, and that's a 3-week duration. And that carries us through about the middle of May, so May 18th. So I did want to do a quick review on the user stories and epics that we have in, at least in kind of the groupings that we have in there. We do need to work on getting stories targeted for Sprint 1. I did mention, I think, at near the beginning of the call that we have that, I think, done for OpenOMCI for what we have based on current resources, what can be done in Sprint 1, and based on the prioritization that was discussed previously. And then we need that same exercise done for the remaining items, scope item. And then also just a reminder, carryover from last week, we're still looking for an owner for updating Broadcom adapter to use OpenOMCI framework. So just noting that here, and also the related testing that goes with that. So I just carried that over from our previous minutes also. So let me go over to Sprint 1. And the first thing I want to do is actually go up to the top, and we'll take a look. I need to minimize the controls so I can see the window. Here we go. So we do have a fair bit that carried over from 1.3 in terms of mainly the redfish-related work with EdgeCore. So I wanted to touch base, Kim, with you on that to see if we have a path forward or what we need to do in order to get a path forward for this for 2.0. Do you have any feedback for me on that?
Sorry, I'm kind of in a noisy environment. No, I don't have a good path forward on that. Unless we can get some more resources assigned somehow to that. I know that EdgeCore was working on that to some partial, with partial success, but it needs to have more of a devoted team push to it. So I'm not really sure,
okay,
how we do that.
Okay. And Sean Ying, I know you're on here. I didn't check before I closed up the controls if Sunny's on the call today, but I know she did do some testing earlier. So Sean, I think for the Sean Ying, I think for the redfish items, we probably need to have a targeted meeting to figure out a path forward if these are going to stay in 2.0. And so let's set something up, and we can figure out who you need included for that. But I think we'll want to get EdgeCore and RateAssist and AT&T, and perhaps, I don't know, if we have other resources as well. But let's take a look at that and figure out how we can move forward with that. That was the large item I think we had.
Sorry, do you have anything? Yeah. Do you have something you want to add to Sunny? She's here.
Oh, she is.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the registration itself works. It's just when you integrate with the core, so you cannot find the traffic, and the event cannot push to the Kafka cat. So that's the thing.
Okay.
I don't know who will work on it. Need somebody to integrate with the core. And
yeah, I think definitely. I think that. Yeah, Julie, let's. I think your proposal regarding to maybe have a separate discussion on this one will be good. I think right now we should be able to identify some of the help we can get. So.
All right. All right. Thank you, and thanks, Sunny, also. Okay. And then I'll point out while we're here in the backlog that we do have the user stories for OpenOMCI that were pulled into Sprint 1. So we start out mainly with some MIB database related work. And then
hey, Julie?
Yes.
Both 694 potentially.
You're breaking up. I can't hear what you were saying.
What I'm saying is that both 694. The ticket, the Foundry probably submitted something. So let me double check with Foundry.
Okay, I do see there is something in Garrett here.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we should have folks take, do we have people assigned to look at that? So I see Girish's name on here. There may need to be other reviewers as well.
So Nick created this ticket, assigned it to himself because he had the fix.
Okay.
So right now the code review, we do need to have some code review to happen on this one. I'll work with you on who will be the next one to review this. But I think Girish is assigned, right?
Okay, thank you, Sean. Okay, Chip, do you want to just give a brief recap of the 4 stories that were pulled into Sprint 1? See if there are questions from the community for OpenOMCI.
Yeah, what I was primarily trying to focus on is completing the rest of the MIB synchronizer state machine, which is the, once you do an audit, doing the comparison of the ONU database and the OpenOMCI versions, and figuring that out, and also converting the ONU capabilities. There's quite a bit of information you can get after a MIB upload to for that might be useful, or we probably need to be supported before we start doing technology profiles, or at least we know what we have. So that's what I'm trying to focus on right now.
Thank you. Are there questions for Chip? Okay, and I'll just also point out, because we need to take this approach for the other scope items coming in as well, we've put in the number of stories in Sprint 1 that line up with the expected resources we have available in terms of story points that can be absorbed. So we need to do that effort for the remaining scope items as well. So if I could have the creators of, or the folks who are kind of taking the technical lead for generating the user stories and epics, if you could help me with identifying how much can be brought in by the sort of sub team you have working with that, the resources that are available in Sprint 1, so we can get the appropriate number of stories scoped in. So right now we're a little bit behind on this. I do know we have some people that are out of the office as well. So I think on the Sienna side, we have some items that we'll need to find who can help us bring in the right stories, because Ken is out of the office right now. So let me.
Yeah, I'm working with the team. I don't know if any are on the call or not. Well, try to get the JIRAs defined and get them placed into sprint 1.
Perfect.
And you also wanted a idea of how many story points you think the team can handle. But isn't that really just the number of people, the items, in theory, the items that are pulled into sprint 1 represent the story points that can be handled by the team.
Right, and that will help us estimate based on current resources how many sprints we need for 2.0. So the concern right now, we still don't have a target release date for 2.0. So we need to be able to estimate how many sprints are needed for the scoped in work so that we can at least come up with a good guess at when we should target our release date.
All right.
Okay, and then I think so we covered with that quick discussion there some of the items that Ken has entered, and so I have a few of those categories up on the screen right now for refactoring VOLTHA Core, and then creating a common library for microservices, I believe is what this is. Yeah? Is there a comment? Okay, maybe not. And then also containerization of PondSim. And related to this one, if I go back to our, okay, here we go. To our scope planning that we had from the lockdown. So we do have the containerization for PondSim covered, but I believe we're going to need user stories for the other adapters as well, for them to be updated in order to work into the 2.0 approach with the containerized adapters. So I was looking really to have the owners of those adapters to create the user stories. If you need me to do it instead, please let me know. But I would like to get those officially tracked in JIRA as well.
Are we going to start putting dependencies there as well? Because I suspect until there's some of the core work is done, it's going to be impossible to spread out the adapt.
Yes. So my preference would be to have at least a high-level story in there with a dependency on the core work being blocked, and that way we'll at least not lose track of it when we go to later sprints and when that work is completed on the core side.
Is there a definition of what it would take to containerize an adapter? Is there like a generic roadmap for that, or it's specific to each one?
Well, again, the one thing that Ken talked about at the lockdown was coming up with the common libraries, and there are JIRAs for that to kind of wrap the Kafka messaging so that in terms of the implementation within the adapter, you're handling message very similar to what you're handling today. So I think there are steps that we anticipate or that are anticipated, but I don't think it's written down anywhere. It's not. I wouldn't object to having it written down somewhere. I think that could be a good thing to do. But until the first one's done, you know, it's all kind of a guess.
Okay, I mean, so just if we're separating out the responsibilities, it'd be good to have some kind of roadmap.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you do the first one, then we could take it from there, I guess.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Thanks, David. And then I'm about out of time before I need to hand it over. I do want to make sure I get down here. So, Sean Missett, I think you have been working the background on I know we need multiple resources assigned to kind of take ownership of various portions of the technology profile work. So is that sort of just happening in the background, or how is that progressing?
So yeah, so right now, you know, last week we kind of talked about what kind of needs to get done to accomplish this. We didn't really talk about who's assigned to, you know, what area. So I'm assuming it's just going to be something like, you know, like the layering we talked about before. So Redis is kind of looking at scoping, you know, what it would take to do the adapter side work. So there needs to be some, you know, some engagement, I guess, or assignment of the epics around the VOLTHA core, the management layer, and maybe ONOS as well. So that still needs to be done.
Okay. So Sean Yang, did you have any other comment? I know you had comments earlier on the general technology profile work. Did you have anything else you wanted to add at this point?
No, I just think the 2.0 highly dependent on the availability of the technology profile. So we need resources.
So I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if we need to have a separate meeting with just the folks that are on the list. If I go back over here.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, so just a targeted one. You can help me pull in the right representatives that you've been working with for each company.
And yeah, I mean, Saurav. Yeah, okay.
Okay, and let's see if we can maybe get that done this week. Let's see what we can find on calendars.
I know Saurav will not be available Monday, Tuesday to Thursday,
okay.
Right?
That's right. Okay. So we may have a dependency there to wait until Friday. Okay. I'd like to get some of the work kicked off in Sprint 1, since I know there's a lot to tackle there. Okay.
And just FYI, I'm going to be out of the office Wednesday of next week, Wednesday through Friday of next week.
All right. So with Sean's input, I think probably waiting for Saurav, probably Friday is our best bet to set something up. If that doesn't work, maybe we can look at Monday of next week.
I'm invited.
Hi, this is Saurav.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I was on mute. So I think as far as Sprint 1 goes, sort of ONF's plate is full. Doing this sort of bottom-up approach to just get it working. So at least from the ONF side, I don't think we'll be doing anything in technology profiles for Sprint 1. However, we will be doing it in Sprint 2. So I don't know if there is an urgency to meet and talk about this week. I'm anyway traveling, so I won't be available on Friday either. But next week I should be able to talk about this.
So Saurav, actually back to Sean Missett then here. So it looks like, is there anything on the Radisys side that you were thinking you would pull into Sprint 1, or is pretty much everything on hold till Sprint 2?
Well, we still need to scope, you know, the effort around this, so it'd be safer for Sprint 2, I think.
Okay, so I'll readjust my little plan here and look at tech profiles in Sprint 2, but I think we still need to meet next week, preferably to try and start lining up resources and figure out what all is going to be involved here and who we have to cover which areas. So let's still look for a meeting maybe next week then. Does that work for everyone?
Sure, given
and
that
I know you said you're gone
Monday or
Friday, so it has to be Monday or Tuesday. All right, we'll see what we can come up with. Okay, and I am due to switch it over to the presentation from AT&T. So OpenOMCI, I think that is underway and in good shape for the initial plan for Sprint 1. David's helping me out with the folks on the Sienna side, since Ken is out of the office, in order to scope in the appropriate stories for the items that Sienna is working on from our planning list. So thank you for that. And then we also have a number of defects that are carried over from the previous 1.3 that did not get completed, and new ones that were opened as well. And I'm trying to get back to the right screen here. I do want to point out as well, there are a number of new stories that have come in over the last, I would say, week. And if, since I don't have time today to go over them, if everyone could take a look at the new issues in JIRA, we'll try and cover them if I have time Thursday as well. And then just to familiarize yourself with the new tickets that have been opened for defects and some functionality as well. So with that, Mike Gasser, are you ready to do the presentation from the AT&T side?
I can.
Okay.
I am ready to go.
I will give you presentation right. And just a reminder, this is being recorded. All right.
So watch your language.
And what you show on the screen.
Okay, I'm trying to figure this out. I don't want to do my calendar. There we are.
Okay, we can see it. Thank you.
Presentation mode. All right. Hold on just 1 second. Okay, is that readable there? I'm not a PowerPoint expert, but is this readable, or should I make it bigger?
Looks fine to me.
It looks good.
Looks good.
Okay. All right. So what we've done here is we've started to go through all sorts of use cases that we have in AT&T for operating OLTs. And we have any number of APIs that come from OSS, come from status monitoring and collection tools, come from operations, cut-through abilities, and everything. So we will go through each one of those things, and hopefully this will help us build up a view of what we would consider kind of the FCAPS management model for what we need to manage how we manage today in OLT, and to bring some things from the table. In going through this and collecting all these things that AT&T uses today, definitely there are things that apply directly to VOLTHA, and then there might be some things that maybe apply to certain types of ONOS apps or certain things, but we still need the ability to have a common set of functional FCAPS interactions that will get us those types of informations. We have done, or we have worked through going through and seeing what kind of definitions can scope some of this information. We have identified existing industry standard Yang models where they are available that could be used to collect this information and manage this information. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to stay with that, but that is industry, that is a good definition where a lot of this stuff can occur. So today we'll be working on some of the operational status pieces, and in subsequent meetings we'll bring some of the information more about management and software downloads and some of those other models that we think will also be important to operate the OLT in our network. So some of the first ones that come up deal with statistics and reporting on 8021X. So there can also be other, obviously, authentication models, DHCP or PPOE, or those. We don't have the experience in using those, so we would hope that the other operators that have more experience with those can bring some of that information to the table to talk about other authentication methods. But the authentication method we use is 802.1x. And so in the industry today, there are 802.1x models that are defined by the IEEE, and they have a lot of the data. So here you'll see here from Authenticator, what is the status of a authentication thing? Or have I been forced authenticated? Am I been forced unauthenticated? Am I currently held, or I'm currently authenticated? All of these types of states that your authentication state machine might be in. Can I actually talk to the backend servers that are supporting the radius? Have I what are the types of successes and failures that I've had in talking to my authentication server? Is my current port that I'm on, that I'm querying information about, is he currently authorized or not authorized? And then along with that, any number of statistics that might be involved in this particular port's authentication things. How many times has he tried to do things? Who is he talking to? What kinds of frames are coming in? What kind of responses is he getting? Basically a lot of the authentication protocols and stuff that go on to for a subscriber and a subscriber port, we'd want to have statistics on. So this is kind of at a port level. Then we also have transitions and failures and everything. A lot of other things that are also defined in IEEE 802.1x YANG models. And then we have.
Is this, Mike, sorry, just a quick question. So would this, in the VOLTHA ONOS architecture, would this be maintained in ONOS?
Well, I mean, that's where all the authentication is right now, is in AAA, right? So presume that's like kind of where I started the meeting. It's like not all of this sits in VOLTHA, right? Because we're not implementing all of this in VOLTHA. So we would have to be able to have a management interface. Maybe it resides in ONOS, or maybe you have to get pieces and functions from ONOS to get pieces or orchestrator or upper layer things. Maybe something like Awesome in AT&T's case. So we're just trying to identify the data that we need, and then how are we going to bring it together in kind of a unifying manner and be able to present it to our operators, because this is the data that they use on a daily basis to troubleshoot our network.
Okay. Thanks.
So I'm not trying to say that this has to sit inside of VOLTHA, because obviously today it doesn't, and I'm not implying that it should move into VOLTHA. I'm just implying that in order to operate an OLT on a daily basis.
I guess when I see or VOLTHA/ONOS would be a source for some of these events. Or whatever.
Correct. Being handled and done in ONOS, or if it's not even ONOS, if it's got to go up to OSAM or some other thing above, we need to work out all of that architecture to figure out, because an operator, my trusty ATS guy is going to go in and say, who is my port authenticated? Why am I having problems authenticating my port? Oh, he's can't talk to the server, can't talk to. I mean, we need to be able to have a good story into how does all this information flow up and how can it be retrieved by an ATS agent. I just happened to start with 802.1x because it was a number, and that was kind of alphabetically how they all sorted out. I didn't necessarily mean to start there, because there will be obviously a lot of other stuff that would be more VOLTHA related. And then to finish off some of the 802.1x stuff, we have session statistics that talks about the session itself and what are the statuses of an existing 802.1x session, and that's all pretty much nicely covered in the IEEE Yang models. Going on, we also have some different, we use radius authentication, radius accounting server statistics that are defined in RFC 2866. Unfortunately, to date, I haven't found an interesting set of Yang models that will cover RFC 2866. But the current IETF models do cover configuring radius servers, specifically RFC 2865. So we would potentially want to use the, oh, do I keep having something pop up there? Let me shut this down. We want to enhance what is currently scoped in the IETF system models to cover RFC 2866 as well, because we actively accumulate radius accounting statistics and try to use that information in our systems as well. Oops, sorry, that went too fast. This is just some more of the statistics that come along with that. We currently have information about our database, and obviously this is kind of a more of a why does this keep happening? This keeps popping up out of my way. Closed. It is pausing screen sharing. Screen sharing is now paused. Okay. Let me try to turn off this. Okay. I'm trying to get that to close. Close. All right, hold on. I'm gonna have to. This is not working well. I'm gonna have to get this. Messenger. I can't get this out of the way. Get this off screen. Move this away. I'm trying to move it away. I understand. I'm trying to get this out of my thing. I haven't used GoToMeeting very well, so I'm learning. Too much stuff on the screen. Okay, am I back in business? Have I got everything out of the way? Hopefully I have. Okay, so the so we periodically in our OLTs today we will take a snapshot of the database. Again, in the VOLTHA model, that could be a very distributed set of things. That could be some stuff in ONOS, that could be some stuff in VOLTHA, but it really applies potentially to multiple levels. So having some idea of, I've collected a group of configurations that I've put somewhere that I can potentially restore together in various places, having some type of the ability to understand my version control, my database backups for all of the services that will be applied is something that we think that we'll need, although we don't necessarily understand where all of the pieces might be or where all of the configurations states may be, but we do know that we need to back things up and be able to put them somewhere and to hold them together, that, you know, this is my ONOS version, this is my VOLTHA version. These are the things where all of those configurations are tied together and stored as a, this is what happened at a certain date and a certain time with a certain database version, and, you know, we keep those statuses together. This is maybe historical because you had potentially the ability to have that database on a single OLT and then take it and download it off to a remote server somewhere. So this would be kind of information that might tell you that, okay, I've collected information and I'm going to go put it somewhere. Well, maybe I failed to put my database information in the correct location. Again, these are things that don't directly apply in VOLTHA, but we need to have this kind of idea of I have a knowledge of where my backups are stored, where my backup configurations are stored if they're not fully databases. How do I back up and restore my system to a previous day state because something went wrong? I still need all of those abilities to be able to do that type of operation.
Is the backed up database required to be editable? Is it like a show running config or something that gets stored off somewhere that could be modified, or it doesn't matter, it's just an opaque blob of data that gets saved and restored?
Today's use cases do not include the ability to modify. Basically, it's a snapshot in time. So our AT&T's use cases today are not that we can put it offline, edit it, and then restore it with a different configuration. But there could be parts of the migration process that you would have if you're having a database schema change, if you're having a big database schema change, and you're not potentially wanting to implement all of that schema change functionality into the code itself, and you want to say, okay, well, I know I have a huge database schema change. I'm going to port my database off somewhere else. I'm going to manually manipulate that migration offline. I'm going to upgrade the software and put the database back on there with the migrated schema. That would be something that I think would be conceivable. But in terms of just saying, oh, I want to take out this one customer because he didn't pay his bill, and so I'm going to edit him out of the backup and we're not really editing the backups at this point operationally in what AT&T is doing. I don't know what other use cases other operators may have, but AT&T doesn't currently have that use case. Some of these next couple slides will go pretty fast. There's a lot of detail, but it's related to IGMP. So obviously you can have a whole lot of IGMP statistics that you might want to know and might want to manage. And again, this would more likely be something that would move up into the ONOS IGMP app, since there's not a lot of IGMP itself going on inside of VOLTHA. And since we're not, the initial releases of VOLTHA are not focusing on IGMP, these would come later, but it's good to define all the detail. So we have channel statistics, and then we have data statistics more for this. These are for the individual channels that might be there. These are for the overall IGMP engine itself. Lots of fun stuff. This is very well defined currently in 383, although not every single one of these parameters that I've detailed is currently in 383. So we would probably want to come back and enhance 383 to cover some of this information. And then then we have the idea of checking some of the information about where is a particular multi-class source being originated from, where is it being, what is the IP address that channel is coming from, and what is the kind of the VLAN information that's being used. These are some of the IGMP statistics that we readily work through, although as we were just saying, that they're not currently the focus of an MVC platform. So some of these statistics that we're coming into now are some of the more interesting things that would directly apply to VOLTHA. These are some of the being able to pull all of the statistics on an OMT that is basically talking a lot about its uplink, a lot about how is it connected to the OLT, what is it, what are the all of the different alarms. I mean, these are basically all alarms that could be reported. If we don't have all of the alarms from the beginning, we would hopefully at least have, the ability to come pull the statuses and find out, all the different statuses of what's going on that PON uplink has actually the OMT been disabled? You know, has it been, is it off because it's been disabled? That one would be probably a little bit hard to pull from an upstream channel if it actually was gone. But if you were actually on the ONT itself and you had a communication to the ONT itself, you could see that it had been disabled. So these are some of the things. These are some of the alarm configurations that you might have on what's going on in the optics. So there are threshold alarms that talk about the power levels that the optics receives. You can configure those thresholds in order to tell you how your optical power is being utilized on the ONT, and these are things that we actively use in our troubleshooting of our network. This would be the status of those optical signal levels that would be received, and then whether or not the different thresholds have been crossed. So these are related to the alarms that we'll see coming up in subsequent presentations, but this is all the status information that you could possibly pull on that. This is the ability that we have in ONTs in our network today, that we basically tell the ONT to persist all of the information that it has. So this is an interface into the ONT that says, you know, save all of your configuration and come up with your existing configuration in your local storage. I don't know if that will be applicable to how the ONTs are managed today. I don't know whether all the ONTs that are being looked at for interoperation with VOLTHA will have this capability or even have the flash on there. But this is something that we do today, and then we can, you know, pull the statistics on, you know, have I properly persisted my data to the flash, and when did I do it? So this is some of those things. Some of these things, a lot of the PON stuff is defined in WT385, and a lot of it is WT385 can use some extensions. So we would propose from AT&T's point of view to not only start to add this information into 385, but then to bring it in here. I am getting close to the hour, and we can send out some of the things. Here's some more IEEE stats, basically talking about you know, how are my, this would be unit UNI port on the ONT. How could we pull all of the statistics and the PM off of that stuff? Optical receive levels, more information about that. A lot of these things defined in 383. And let's see what we got here at the end. And then status on your PON, is it ranged? Is it manually disabled? Is it things, what are the bit error counters that you've received on the PON? And then I have one more, and I'm at the hour, SFP statistics, in order to, you know, pull the vendor information off of the SFPs, again, defined in 383 already. So there's a lot of good models out there that are covering a lot of the information that we think that we need. We are very open to information other operators feel like they would need, and especially as we started off the meeting in the realms of DHCP authentication or PPPoE authentication that we're not using. So we bring what we know, and we look for other contributions to pull in those things that you guys find important as well. So I guess that's my time. We kind of rushed through it, but definitely we will provide this to you guys, and if you guys have any questions, you can follow up. That'd be great.
Thank you, Mike. Any quick questions from the group before we wrap up the meeting today? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so I will go ahead. Oh, yeah, I spoke too soon. Was there a question? All right, I don't think so. So Mike, thank you very much for the presentation. And we are out of time, so I'll go ahead and stop the recording for today.